Danielle, if I have my count right, we need 4 more to get going, correct?
I believe member Inocencio is joining us now.
Correct. So now we're down to 3.
It's the countdown. Or the count up, I should say.
I see member Wiseman has just joined us.
It looks to me like we have 8. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order our Community Advisory Board meeting for the month of April. And Danielle, are you here for a roll call?
Okay, starting with member Barnett,
Here.
member Bartholow,
Here.
member Inocencio,
Here.
member Lange, not here. Member Rom,
Here.
member Richardson, see her. Member Rodriguez is absent today. Member Square.
Here.
Okay. Member Steffi,
Here.
member Wiseman,
Here.
and Vice Chair Weeks is also absent today, and Chair Graves.
Here. And I'd like to note, Member Wiseman, I do believe you have to turn on your camera for us to officially have a quorum. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Danielle, for that. And at this time, I'd like to go to our second agenda item for public comments.
There are currently no hands raised for public comment. And actually, I am promoting member Lange to panelist right now. Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like we do have one hand raised here from Pat. So let me, like I said, we're just promoting one more member.
All right,
And-
with the public comment, coming up, I told myself that I would remember to go over uh, this information for public comment. So would you like me to do that, or Madeline, would you like to do that?
Yeah, go ahead, share, of course.
Thank you. So public comment may be made live during the meeting via Zoom or submitted by 5 p.m. The Tuesday before the meeting, which that would have been yesterday, the 26th, and via email at communityengagement@santarosacity.org or srcity.org, or via recorded voice message at 707-543-3080. Recorded voice message comments will be played up to 3 minutes each at the time that the agenda item is discussed during the CAB meeting. And email public comments will be provided to all CAB members prior to the meeting. I don't believe we had any email comments at this time. This public comment is when any person may address matters not listed on the agenda, but which are within the subject matter of the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board. The public may comment on agenda items when the item is called later in the agenda as well. Public comment may be made live during the meeting via Zoom, and each speaker is allowed 3 minutes for comment. Public comments may also be submitted, and that's going back to the information I had read earlier, before 5 p.m. the Tuesday before the CAB meeting. So at this time, do we have that queued up?
We do, okay, and the first hand that we have raised is from Pat Kuda. Pat, I have given you permissions to speak. Do you see the timer on your screen?
I'm trying to unmute.
Yep,
Oops.
you're good, we can hear you.
Great. It's just a quick question. I had made a request that the members of the Community Advisory Board be given Santa Rosa City email addresses so that they can get communication. This is a protocol that the Charter Committee has, and I know the Advisory Committee, the general plan. So I was hoping that that's something that could be implemented soon. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next hand that we have raised is from Judy Kennedy. Judy, I have unmuted your microphone. Do you see the timer on your screen?
Yes, I do.
Okay, your timer begins now.
I just wanted to let the advisory board know that I'm here to answer questions when you discuss the grant for the rainbow flag crosswalk. So that's it, just to let you know that I'm here to answer questions when that comes up.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no other hands raised for item 2, public comments.
Great, thank you. And I do believe that I have heard through somewhat of a staff and council member grapevine that email addresses are hard to come by. There's only so many that can go around. So with different servers and whatnot, but I assume that staff will come back to us with that information at a later date. So thank you. That will close out the public comments and go on to agenda item number 3, which is approval of the minutes. This was our minutes from February 23rd and our regular meeting at that time. The attachment is from February. Is that correct? This wouldn't have been, yeah, because we didn't have a meeting in March. Correct. All right. This has been 2 months, so I'm a little fuzzy. All right. At this time, are there any comments, edits from the board members from the February meeting minutes that were embedded in your agenda? I'm seeing no raised hands. Looks like no comments are going to be made. So do we have a motion for the minutes for approval?
I move to approve the minutes of February 23rd.
I'll second that.
All right, did you catch that? That was member Bartholomew with the motion and seconded by member Inocencio. And now we'll go to public comment before we take a vote.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. Danielle, would you like to take a roll call vote?
Yes. Member Barnett,
Approve.
Member Bartholomew,
Approve.
Member Inocencio,
Approve.
Member Lange,
Approve.
Member Rom,
Approve.
Member Richardson, not here. Member Square,
Approve.
Member Steffi,
Approve.
Member Wiseman,
Approved. There's just an H on the first part of my name, Sarah,
Oh.
so I can
Okay.
email that for update, but otherwise approved.
Okay, we'll have them change that. Thank you. And Chair Graves.
Approved.
Perfect, thank you.
That closes out number 3 of approval of minutes, and we're going on to the CAB announcements. This is exciting stuff because I know that in the last couple months, there has been a grand opening of life again out in event world. So I'm excited to hear from all of the CAB members, not only events that you may be looking forward to or items that are of note out in the community, but also things that over the last 2 months that you might have been able to go out and engage with the community. So I'm going to go around the screen to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to do this. Member Bartholomew, I'll start with you, but everybody, you don't have to raise your hand because I will get to you.
Thank you so much. I wanted to let everybody know about the first inaugural Water Summit happening on May 10th and 11th. It's being held by the Sonoma County Farm Bureau, but all are welcome. It's a 2-day event. Some of the keynote speakers are pretty high level, including California Secretary Wade Crowfoot, California's Natural Resources Secretary, and Karen Ross, the Secretary of Food and Agriculture for Santa Rosa. We're going to be talking about groundwater sustainability. Over 2 days, there are quite a few things we're talking about, but it's the purpose of this is really to get people together to learn and collaborate and, try to come up with some solutions to the problem that we are having in this elongated drought and, just not having enough water resources and needing to learn how to live with less. So, everyone's welcome, and you can find out more at the California Farm Bureau website.
Do you happen to have the dates? You said it was over 2 days, but
Yes, it's May 10th and 11th. Lunch is provided with the cost of a ticket. You can come one day or you can come both. So whatever works in your schedule.
thank you. Thanks for that update. And member Lange, would you like to update us? Yeah.
Of course,
I
my
know
computer
you're-
freezes as soon as you say my name.
Everybody's screen probably is in a different order than mine too, so.
No, it's totally fine. I'm just running on a hot box today. I haven't heated or turned off my computer, but a number of updates. Sonoma County Black Forum and NAACP Santa Rosa Sonoma hosted a food drive in March and fed over 431 families. So we will be bringing that back on May the 28th, which is a Saturday from 10 to 12. If folks are interested in volunteering, I can circulate the sign-up sheet for that. We do a Friday before, prepping the boxes, and then the morning of, everything is locked and loaded. We also give out personal care items and COVID home tests. And then the county partners with us to bring forward a vaccine clinic and test kits available there too. The last few times they've been giving out delicious boxes of See's candy for partaking in said endeavor. So if you like candy and would love delicious food from all local vendors, it's a really great opportunity. Everybody's welcome. We don't ask for any type of information outside of just an assessment of what your food needs are. And you can take as many boxes as you need. If you are unable to physically get yourself there, we do have a trusty fleet of drivers who will do door delivery for those who don't have access. I can circulate the flyer to you, Danielle, if you don't maybe already have it, to get to everybody else for those details and that information for folks who may know and need. We are all, we as in the Juneteenth Committee, which is a compilation of a number of our local counties, Black organizations, are already underway planning Juneteenth. The flyer should be going out, if not this week, then early next. It will be on June 18th in the MLK Park right off of, oh gosh, the name is escaping me, but by the fairgrounds. Hindley, there you go, Hindley. And it'll be a fun-filled day and afternoon. We're kicking it off with a tribute walk in honor of Vince Harper from Juilliard Park to the park with the youth in Cap Sonoma and all of our membership organizations. So that'll be fun and a nice collaborative Saturday afternoon event in the park and outdoors together. Our orgs are working to bring back the forum that took place at Sonoma State with college readiness and youth support. And so stay tuned for availability and dates on those things. And I think that's it that I have at the top of my brain. Thanks.
That's great. And 2 notes on that, that I believe the event, was it in March, with the Sonoma County Black Forum and NAACP, the 431 families, that was a grant funded by the Community Improvement Grant. So that's awesome to hear.
Yes.
Yeah, great work. Thank you so much, and big need out there in the community. And Member Square, would you have anything for us? No? Just going around the computer screen. All right. Thank you. Member Wiseman, would you have anything for us?
No, not this time.
All right, we'll catch you next time.
Okay.
Member Innocentio.
Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. And Member Ron, you're probably going to beat me to the punch on some things. It's great to see you at an event.
Maybe you will. First of all, thank you for Chair Graves for coming out. We had our Adopt a Park at Coffee Park. We had over 150 people there. It was a great turnout. We got I think it was 18 yards of garbage that got hauled out of there. So it was outstanding. So thank you. Also, I wanted to say that we have a flea market. So the flea market down on San Rosa Avenue is moving to Kmart parking lot starting May. The Indians, the chairman there, Reno Franklin, has leased it to them until they actually build something. So at least that will be usable property rather than just being a fenced yard. So there's a lot of excitement for that. And then I attended the Lowrider with Member Barnett. I saw her there, and that was pretty impressive. It was neat to see all those cars and see everything going on down there. It was kind of nice to see it in the City Hall parking lot, having an event down there. And then the only other thing I will say is that I've challenged my family. We go on bike rides now in different neighborhoods. We did South A District on Sunday when geocaching, and if you know what that is, and saw the art district and stuff, just had a great time down there. So we're doing Roseland this weekend and just picking different places to ride through, just to experience Santa Rosa, because there's all this negative Nellies about what's bad, but there's so much goodness. I mean, Juilliard Park is a jewel if you've never been there. So we're just challenging our family and friends on that. And that's all I got.
Great stuff. Thanks for sharing. And Member Barnett.
Well, good evening, everyone. So my world, great handoff there, Member Rom, is Bike Month. So May is Bike Month. It is a national recognized event. And so this is my little, hey, ride your bike, it's May. There's a whole bunch of month-long activities for Bike Month and Bike to Wherever days. Just put it in your guys' calendars. Friday, May 20th is the official Bike to Wherever day. There will be Energizer stations all over Santa Rosa. I also want to bring it to this organization as well that there is a new from the ground up grassroots organization called Bikeable Santa Rosa. It's a group of residents that have come together for exactly that reason. They want to make Santa Rosa more bikeable. So they are having monthly community rides, and then they meet up in a park and talk about ways that they can improve Santa Rosa and make it more bikeable for everybody. So that's kind of in the immediateness. It was fantastic to see Member Rom at the Mary Lou event, which was absolutely extraordinary. And I do want to take an opportunity to do a huge shout out to Magali and Danielle and Madeline, who's quietly behind the scenes. And I mean, it was an extraordinary event. I cannot begin to tell you how incredible it was to witness all of that behind the scenes work all at once. It was extraordinary. And your team did an incredible job. And I forgot to just give a shout out to Danny right there. But I mean, I also know that there was like a team of multiple departments, multiple agencies, and that's like well over 2 years of work that you guys brought together. But it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible to see as a launching event for the city of Santa Rosa. So I have to give you guys a huge shout out for all of that work. It was extraordinary. And that's it.
All right, thank you. And Member Steffi.
Yes, hi. Sorry. I was lucky enough to actually help out at the city booth at Earth Day. And again, you stole some of my thunder there, but shout out to Danielle and Madeline, sorry, she's always behind the scenes, so I almost forgot her name. Great to work with, and they showed me the ropes, and it's just great. I really urge all of us to get out there, and now that we can, and you can wear your mask. You don't have to be afraid of COVID, right? You can take precautions if you need to, but getting out there and actually meeting people face to face and talking with community members and representing the CAB and all the great programs that Magali's team does, it was just awesome. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the next time.
Great, thank you for sharing. Wonderful to hear all of these stories of engagement and connecting with the community. It's great to see folks back out. And yes, you definitely can take care of yourself. Wearing a mask, I do when I'm out and about. But I want to point out that yes, the Park a Month program, just in case you're interested in that, another one is coming up here in May on the 14th at Howard Park. So those are from 9 a.m. to 12 usually at each park, and it is well staffed. They have equipment for you. They even have gloves, but you can bring your own so that you don't use those supplies, and just show up, and you will be given a task as strenuous as you would like, probably. So it's easy to join in, and it's very family friendly too. I just want to point that out. Another event that is coming up that might not be on everybody's radar, but is near and dear to my heart, is this Sunday on May 1st is the May Day March, and it is supporting workers' rights and immigrant rights here in Sonoma County and far and wide, starting at 1 o'clock, if I didn't say that, and Roseland Village. So that's at the old dollar store, 777 Sebastopol Road. It'll be gathering there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then marching over to Courthouse Square. And there's also a performance, I believe, starting at 3 o'clock by the Almas at and that's exciting that that's happening. And I'm sorry I don't have more details about that, but there's a performance in Courthouse Square, so that's exciting in and of itself. And I also want to share that over the past 7 weeks, I have been attending the police community experience. It is an experience that all residents could take part in. You do have to apply because there's limited spots. I think there's about 15 of us at this point. And it's 8 Wednesdays and 1 Saturday. It's in person, and you learn more about the police department. I would love to see a more diverse crowd experiencing this, but I also understand the safety concerns and risk in putting oneself out there. And it does tend to be heavily attended by folks that are very committed to supporting the police department. And so that sometimes can be a risky situation for some folks. And I have felt that myself. So I understand. Will be talking about that with leadership, the new leadership coming into the police department, and how to potentially change that so that more folks could take advantage of it and potentially learn the information, but with a less risk and more safety in that situation. So with that, one last very important thing. Just a virtual shout out right now across the pond to our mayor, who just got married yesterday. So congratulations to our mayor. There we go. It's very exciting. And his bride, his wife now. Beautiful photos on Facebook. If you don't follow Chris Rogers, please do. Not just because he got married, but because he is wonderful at transparent communication on social media channels. And you can learn a lot about what it goes on at the city and within our community by following him on Facebook, Instagram, and even Twitter. So with that, I believe we're not closing out item number 4, but moving on to public comments on item number 4, cab announcements.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. So that'll close it out on item number 4. And moving on to staff updates. I'm gonna hand this over now to Danielle and Magali. There's a time reserved for the city staff to provide a briefing on issues of interest, and no action will be taken on these matters. So except to have future consideration as an agenda item. So Danielle, looks like you are raring to go.
Yes, I have a lot. So let's do this. All right, the Mary Lou Lowrider update. So as Member Rom and Member Barnett mentioned, we did hold the event on March 26th at City Hall parking lot. It was absolutely amazing, as they both mentioned. We had at bare minimum 500 people, but probably more. Just packed the parking lot with a Lowrider car show, pommel blessing, and several performances before we got to the unveiling of the car. And we finished off the event with a cruise downtown and down Mendocino, which was pretty amazing. Next steps with the car, we are working on developing programming, particularly around engagement and youth leadership development with the car. So Gustavo Mendoza and I are working on reaching out to other jurisdictions that have similar vehicles and programming to see what they do. In addition, we've been out with the car at community events, including a health and wellness fair at El Cielon High School on April 3rd. And we have a lot coming up. You'll see the car at the Lowrider Council Cinco de Mayo event on Saturday, May 7th from 2 to 5 at Doyle Park. That'll be a really great event, another big car show. Our team will be out there, as well as Santa Rosa Police Department, to table and provide information to participants. There will also be a hydraulics hop competition during the event. So come out and see that. It's going to be pretty awesome. The car will also be at the South Park Ice Cream Social and Public Safety Day on May 14th. Wildfire ready. in Courthouse Square on May 21st. We are also going to be cruising the car in the Pride Parade on June 4th, as well as the Peggy Sue Cruise on June 11th. And we are also hoping to bring the car out to the Juneteenth event in South Park on June 18th. So that is the current schedule for the car, although there are many other events coming up. We're also working on prioritizing which events in the future to go at, because this is quite a bit for our tiny team. So we will come up with a way to prioritize events, and particularly for neighborhood and community groups. Moving on from, and one final thing, and I hope Magali doesn't get too mad at me for saying this, but we are also working with the Santa Rosa Police Department on looking at the no cruising ordinance that is currently on the books, and talking with them about taking it to council to propose repealing the ordinance or modifying the ordinance to take cruising out of it. Because it doesn't really make sense that we have the car now and are doing all this great work around engaging the lowrider community, and then we have this ordinance on the books. So we are working to change that policy. Moving on, this weekend, Saturday, April 30th at 10 a.m. at the Finley Center is the town hall meeting with our new city manager. She will discuss her first 100 days in her position, listen to community concerns, and gather feedback on pressing issues facing Santa Rosa residents. Community members are encouraged to email their questions prior to the meeting to communityengagement@srcity.org. And we hope to see CAB members there. It's a great way to come out and learn more about Marquisha, our new city manager, and just have a conversation with her. And next, Marquisha Smith is our city manager. Thank you, Magali. Next up, Wildfire Ready. We will be hosting a Wildfire Ready resource fair on Saturday, May 21st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. In Courthouse Square. This event will be continuing to help our community prepare for wildfire season, and in alignment with National Wildfire Ready Awareness Month. Our fire department and Office of Community Engagement will host Wildfire Ready, a one-day resource fair, open to all community members, whether you're a Santa Rosa resident or not. The city, along with participating organizations, will provide event participants with information about wildfire preparedness, including individual and family preparedness, home and property preparedness, emergency alerts and notifications, evacuation zones for Santa Rosa residents, mental health and other wellness resources during emergencies, disaster resources for neighborhoods, and much more. So more information to come, and I will be talking more about that particular event in an upcoming agenda item later on this evening. Moving along, we have the Hern Avenue Community Hub Project, our community assessment RFP update. So our office received 6 proposals for the Hern Community Hub Needs Assessment and Collaboration Project. The purpose of the Needs Assessment and Collaboration Project is to gather community input and participation in development of the multi-use site identified and acquired by the City of Santa Rosa and the Sonoma County Library in South Santa Rosa. Key outcomes of the project will be to provide input and data to the City Council on possible uses, including a library, a multicultural community center, an aquatic center, and a community and/or neighborhood park. Next steps include evaluating and selecting the consultant, and start date for this project is set for July 1st of this year. Moving on to the Multicultural Roots Project update for the month of April. Some of you may have already seen, but we are highlighting lowrider culture and lowriders here in Sonoma County and Santa Rosa. For May, we will be shifting gears and highlighting stories in honor of Asian American and Pacific Islander Month. And then in June, we will be highlighting stories around Pride Month. The project team is also working with staff from the Arts and Public Places program to feature the Multicultural Roots Project at the Finley Community Center starting in August and running through September. And we're also working with them in utilizing the space in City Council chambers to share our stories on a monthly basis. And we are also reviving our partnership with the Sonoma County Museum. They have requested a meeting with our team to figure out next steps in our partnership. And finally, last update is our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Spaces mini grant program. City Council approved use of $150,000 in PG&E settlement and ARPA funds for a Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Spaces mini grant program. The goal of this mini grant program is to support our BIPOC community members in accessing and securing spaces that create diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Eligible applications include classes, events, workshops, projects that celebrate cultural wealth and educational opportunities for the community around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. All events, classes, workshops, and projects must be free to participants. Our staff is currently in the process of developing the program and application process, and we are moving it along to the city manager to review. And then after that, it has to go to city attorney for review and approval. Our staff will review, evaluate, and make funding recommendations to Magali, who will ultimately make the final selections. However, we would love to include the Community Advisory Board in the decision-making process and hope to put together a small team out of the larger board. So if you are interested in being part of this process, please reach out directly to myself in an email and let me know. And that is it for all of our updates this month.
Thank you, Danielle. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to those board members who have questions or actually just questions for Danielle regarding her presentation and information she just shared. Don't see any hands up at this moment. Does anybody have any questions? And I also don't see anybody unmuting, so that's a sign right there. I have a couple questions. One might actually, well, let's separate it into two. You talked about the Hern Avenue Community Hub Needs Assessment. That is such vital information to know. Can we get that information in written form? It's really challenging to know all those details from just you vocalizing them, just so that we can, or where would we access that information?
There will be a lot of information coming out about this process. We're just currently in the process of selecting the consultant. And once we get there, then there will be a lot of information and communication coming out to the whole community about the process and what it looks like, including a timeline.
And I just want to give kind of a heads up that our public information office is going to be creating a Let's Connect page so that if there are community members or community groups that are like, hey, I want to make sure that I'm participating in this listening session process and feedback collection process, we capture that and capture the names or groups that are interested in being part of that. So that is coming soon.
This is going to sound like a comment, but I'll try to make it a question. Is there a possibility that this online type of engagement of capturing people's information that may, because they may have questions, getting out information in an online manner, is there a possibility that we have this information as a flyer that can be distributed around the area, outlying area? Because I just think it's an accessibility issue, getting this information online potentially. That was a question.
Yeah, Magali, I'm looking at you.
So if I heard the question correctly, Chair Graves, are you asking if we're going to have like sort of an outline of information of like what is the project and how people can get involved, kind of like an FAQ type style thing, but in one page?
Correct, like a flyer type of a thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, not so wordy. And of course, my question would also, is it going to be bilingual? I just think that this warrants unfortunately, using of some trees for this and get some paper out there to folks.
Oh, yeah, there. So what I just gave you is like very like preliminary information. This is going to be a substantial project with tons of communication, with tons of engagement, which won't start until July 1. So yeah, in the meantime, we are preparing all of those materials on how people can participate, on how they can get involved, where they can go for more information. That's all being developed currently right now. So yes, all of that information is coming.
Yeah, that was, Danielle gave you the 20-second trailer to a 3-hour movie. So there'll definitely be, because one of the biggest goals is to make sure that we've gone into like every area of Santa Rosa and have had conversations with all the groups that want to be part of the conversation, and also that we put the information out there in a way so that folks understand, and also that we use the information that we know now about, like, where are we collecting the bulk of community feedback from, right? And then how do we go to the other areas of town? Because clearly we're working really well and doing wonderful things in some areas of town, and we're getting that good feedback. So how do we push out more to the areas of the city that we are not hearing from? So there is going to be a very intentional effort for that as well.
I would assume so, but I need to ask the question out loud, so I appreciate the answer. And my second and last question is around that decision-making process for the DEI Belonging mini grant. And I appreciate looping us in. That's awesome. And availing those opportunities to CAB members. I ask that shortly after this meeting, if that information can go out to the remainder of the CAB members so that we don't wait a month to loop them in with the minutes that way. Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Just circling back to members. I see none. So at this time, moving on to public comment for staff updates.
There are currently no hands raised for public comment.
Great, thank you. And that closes out item number 5, and moving on to our scheduled items this evening. First up is the 2022 first quarter Q1 Community Improvement Grant application selections. The CAB will be making funding decisions on applications submitted for this cycle, 2022 Q1 cycle of the Community Improvement Grant. And Danielle, do you want to take it away from there with these 4 applications?
Yes, so we have 4 applications totaling $9,140 in funding requests. One for the Brew Rainbow Crosswalk Project. Second is for the Railroad Square Music Festival. Third is the South Park Coalition Ice Cream Social and Safety Day event. And the 4th is the Water Trailer Purchase Project from Circuit Riders. Let's see, I have one other piece of info. So your current, so we still have some outstanding projects that were on the old reimbursement cycle. We currently have $8,328 in outstanding projects that still need to be completed. But you are left with currently $33,738 left in project funds for this grant program. So you have plenty of money to fund all 4 projects. And I think that's about it this time. Pretty short and sweet.
Great, thank you. At this time, we can have a round of questions. I know that it was posed, if you had questions, you could get those questions into Danielle so that she could get that information over to the applicants. Were there any questions, Danielle, that was?
Nope, not this time.
All right. So without any questions, unless there's something that has popped up in this moment. Is there any discussion around having all 4 voted on at once, or is there any application that, does anybody have a concern to have an application pulled out at this time to be voted on separately? And when you know it, that would be me. So it looks like there's none from the board members, but I'm going to ask that our Railroad Square application be pulled out from the group of 4 to be discussed further. So if there's no objection to that, I don't see any. So at this time, is there a motion for approval of the 3 other applicants, which is the Brew Rainbow Crosswalk Project, the South Park Coalition Ice Cream Social and Safety Day, and the 3rd one being the Water Trailer Purchase Project? Do I hear a motion?
I'll motion to approve those 3 projects.
Member
No,
Steffi.
second.
And the second is, so that was Member Steffi made the motion, and Member Lange made the second. And at this time, we go to a public comment on
Here.
just these 3, by the way.
Thank you. We do have 1 hand raised for public comment. One moment while I get our screen up. Okay, so the hand raised, we have Annette Arnold. Annette, I have given you permission to speak. Do you see the timer on your screen?
I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would just like to say I'm so happy that you've approved the grant for the South Park Ice Cream Social and Safety Day. I think it's going to be a very big event in our neighborhood, and it's open to everybody. We'd love you guys to come and experience it. We have the fire department coming, the police department coming, and several vendors. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annette. After Annette, we have 1 other hand raised, and Gregory, I have given you permission to speak. Do you see the timer on your screen?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Your timer begins now.
Hi, my name is Gregory Farron. I'm with Santa Rosa Together, but I just wanted to comment to Annette. In her application, there's a $250 amount for renting a sound system. The cab board long ago funded a sound system. It's a nice, beautiful Fender system at our request. It's currently on loan to an agency, but can easily be loaned out to this event. Community Action Partnership is actually the owner of it, and it wouldn't take very much to just acquire it for the day. So that part of your budget, I don't think you need to spend.
Okay, thank you very much. Hopefully you 2 can connect. And after that, there are no other hands raised at this time.
I will go ahead and connect both of you offline.
Thank you, Danielle. And I'm going to have to get better at this. I'm going to have to develop a little tagline before I hand it over to public comments. When we make our motion and our second that did not approve anything, we still have to vote, but it's just a matter of procedure that we make a motion and a second, and then we go to public comment before we actually take a vote. So it's no guarantee, but at this time, we will do a roll call vote. And Annette, you hold on to your seat right there. We'll get this vote going. So Danielle, would you like to do that?
I would. Okay. Member Barnett.
Approve.
Member Bartholow.
Approve.
Member Inocencio.
Approve.
Member Lange, sorry.
It's okay. I approve.
Okay. Member Rom.
Approve.
Member Square.
Approve.
Member Steppe.
Approve.
Member Wiseman.
Approve.
And Chair Graves.
Approved.
Awesome. So all of those applications have been approved for funding. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And likewise, pulling out an application does not mean that it has not been approved. It just means that we are now going to open it up for a bit of discussion. As I asked for it to be pulled out from the other ones, I will open up this discussion by saying that why I asked for that is looking at the budget of Railroad Square Music Festival, which is a wonderful festival in Railroad Square, and I'm glad to see that it's coming back. It has a $12,000 grant or income from the city. So funding, I should say, instead of income. So the city is providing $12,000 for this event to take place. And Danielle, I know I can see your face, but I just, why don't we go ahead and just give me a second here. I'll get to you in a second, Danielle. So institutional grants on their income, it has city $12,000, and then under that it has our potential of a community improvement grant for $2,500. So this raises a challenge for me, a concern, being that there's nothing written within our community improvement grants saying that that can't happen. But I think that we may want to discuss the spirit of having the city provide funds for an event, and then having the community advisory board and the community improvement grant then provide additional funds. So that's challenging for me, because I know that there's a number of other events that are out there that do receive funds from the city. And this is going to come up again, potentially, if whichever way it goes. So that's my concern. Is there any comments or with or without? I don't know how to phrase that, but well, I'm raising the concern.
I wish this was brought to my attention sooner, because I could have reached out to them to see what they meant by city $12,000. Reason being is we are not doing the community promotions funding, which is the event pot of money that the city has for these types of event this year. So those funds are not available. So I don't know what they mean. As far as I know, there are no other city grants that have provided events funding this year at all. So I'm a little.
So, and just to clarify that, I mean, they do have community investment funds, which is the funds that you're talking about. It says NA, because that's not available. But then they do list that the city is providing $12,000 in income or funds. So, I mean, this is, I'm sorry, I didn't have a question about this until I was able to look at this information, but being that this is the information, that like I said, it's concerning, it's a challenge. So I'm going to hand it over to board members now. I kind of see nodding and whatnot. If you feel that you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand. Member Bartholomew?
Yes, thank you. Just really, I'm looking for clarification. Can this grant request be handled at the next meeting, or does it have to be done tonight? I mean, it seems like we need to do a little bit of homework around what that $12,000 number is. So can we just address it at the next meeting?
I mean, we could. The next meeting is May 25th. The event is on June 10th and 11th, I believe.
Oh,
So it doesn't give them a whole lot of time. I mean, it's not a make or break, I think, for their event. But they had a specific item that they were going to cover the event with. So, I mean, it's up to you guys. I'm trying to get an answer right now.
And thank you for that question. And Member Rom.
Is there anything in the charter or anywhere that prevents them from getting grants if there was some sort of grant? No.
No, we've actually provided sponsorships from our department
Mhm.
to events that have received community improvement grants before. So it has happened.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And Member Barnett.
So yeah, when I look at this, I have my suspicions, and I think one of the two things it could be is it could be either the city's waiving of permit fees, or it could be economic development is the two that I suspect from previous year's events. But per the grant guidelines, we don't have, it's not a prohibitive if they're getting funds from another city department. And I do want to let this organization know that this event that's happening, their operating budget is, they are operating with $10,000 less this year. They lost one of their sponsors. And so that's part of the reason I think also why they're coming to our organization is because they do have a budget deficit they're trying to make up for, because they obviously want to keep the event free and open to the community. So, but yeah, I I have a suspicion that it has to do with permit waiving because the exact amount. So I mean, and the other part about it is that with it being on June 11th, pushing it to our May meeting, I don't know. I just, because it is a very direct ask, I'm a little hard pressed to defer it to the following month when I suspect that this is the city's, they could be sponsoring it, but my gut check on this is that it's a permit waiver, or that at least part of that funding is permit waivers.
So I just checked in with our economic development team, and they have said that there are no funds from economic development or the normal sources of event funding for this event or for any events this year going towards that. So we're not clear on what that is.
Yeah, and from past experience, I don't know of any permit that costs $12,000, and nowhere close to $12,000, except for even if you were covering police services, that might be a stretch for one day, but and I don't know. So it's worth finding out. But remember, Inocencio, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, so I guess I was just gonna say if I would be more than willing to support this, and maybe we could discuss at a later date. But if we have no language or any thing prohibiting for us from funding it, I think it's totally fine. Seems like a big event, a big fun event, and there seems like a pretty expensive to put on as well. So I think if we can help them out with the CAB grant, I think we definitely should. Just my opinion.
Member Barnett, is your hand up again?
Yeah, I just went on the event website, and the two pieces that might fill in the gap, it's Out There Santa Rosa, which is economic development, but it is a project of economic development. They've contracted out for Out There, but as a grant applicant, they may not realize that. And then it's the Santa Rosa Metro Chamber, which is another possibility that it could be that the grant applicant is thinking Santa Rosa Metro Chamber, but I do see on there, it's Out There Santa Rosa, which I can see where they would interpret that as the city of Santa Rosa. So just giving a little bit of clarity of what's on their actual website.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions? I will say before this goes to a vote that I'm still challenged by this. And I think it's just the Pandora's box of opening this up, and I realize that we have no language around it. But events that are larger, I also grapple with the public perception of having that line item, having a large funding from quote unquote the city, and not knowing what that is, and then adding on to that. So I realize I might not have a popular opinion, but I'm just uncomfortable and challenged by it. So I need to voice that and go with that myself.
I just remembered a piece of historical information too for the board. That particular group, the music festival, has given cab free booth space each year, at least for the past, what, Shuri, like 5-6 years or so. So it is an opportunity that the cab has historically utilized to table and get information out about the grant program as well.
So at this time, Member Rom?
In the nick of time. Has this been funded but through CAB before?
No, only because we've had the city's community promotions funding, which usually takes care of all of the permit fees and, the cost for police and things like that.
Because I mean, 2,500 is a small in the bucket of the whole expense. If they don't have the 12 grand, if they think they have 12 grand and they don't have it, they got bigger issues than 2,500. That's my only comment.
And I'll point out that most events that, in my knowledge, that have had funds from the community investment funding, which is available once a year through the city of Santa Rosa, usually for larger events. Those, when the city does provide those funds, then tabling can happen. So I just don't want that statement of CAB has tabled at this event to be any type of leverage. That's not how that's supposed to work. If you get tabling space, it's not leverage to then get a grant later on. I know you didn't mean it that way, Danielle, but I don't want any suspicion of that being said publicly.
I just want to mention Raisa De La Rosa, who is the Economic Development Director, is jumping on right now to talk about what this potentially might be. She'll be on in just a second to answer some of that, hopefully clarify. So just give us one moment. All right, here is Raisa. Hi, Raisa.
Hi, I am coming in cold and blind, but I understand you have a question.
Yes. So we have an application from the Railroad Square Music Festival for a cab grant, and there is a line item in their budget that is stating that they are receiving $12,000 from the city, but it doesn't specify what they're receiving, if it's coming from, what department. So there was a thought that it might be coming from Out There Santa Rosa.
Oh, yeah, I need to double check that if, so Tara Thompson runs that program for us, and we had been in discussion specific to the way in which our Out There Santa Rosa program can have a presence. But I would need to double check with Tara if that's the amount or what it is. And if it is from Out There Santa Rosa, it would be very specifically for us to have a specific presence and acknowledgement within the program as supporting for that specific program.
Perfect. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Sure. Sorry, I can't be of more help and confirm.
It's okay. No problem.
Is that all you need from me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for that. And at this time, do we have a motion on the floor for approval?
Move to approve the community improvement grant for the Railroad Square Music Festival.
I'll second it.
And that was Member Barnett that had the motion, and I think it was Member Steffi that
Yes,
had
it was.
seconded it.
Yes.
And at this time, we'll go to public comment.
We do have one hand raised for public comment. Gregory, I have given you permission to speak. Do you see the timer on your screen?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Your time begins now.
Thank you. My name is Gregory Farron. I'm with Santa Rosa Together again. Similar to what I said before about trying to help CAB build capacity among the neighborhoods and among any group that wants to put on anything, I have a couple of suggestions. Any event that gets put on in the community usually needs sound. And that's what I was saying before about you've already funded a sound system that's available to anybody who wants to use it. The other thing that I would like, that I see in this grant, and I'd like to see a little more attention to by CAB, is power. Everybody, who puts on an event usually goes out and, buys himself a generator or rent something that's not exactly the best climate concerned tool. And lately, a lot of groups that I know of are buying, basically battery powered power systems for about the same cost that basically are non-polluting and not very noisy. So I guess what I'm suggesting is when you give a grant to somebody, think about the climate, think about what you're doing, and especially take a bold move to model what other people and other groups can begin to do to not use the kinds of polluting devices that we've seen in the past. So I'm asking you to be bold, but I'm asking you to, be a model of trying to figure out a way of having people come to an event and not have to do it in the same way that's wasteful and highly polluted. This one is. I will bet that money they've got in there for power is going to, use a generator, and we shouldn't be doing that. We should be trying to figure out ways of living lightly on the land, and so that's my request of you, is to look into this one and perhaps, buy yourself a power system or two and start loaning that out. We long ago have suggested that a lending library of tools and equipment that can be used in any of your grants ought to be bought and centralized, and everybody ought to have access to it, whether they get a grant from you or not, if they're a neighborhood group trying to do something. Think about becoming a resource to the neighbors who want to do things that require these kinds of tools. Even trucks. I mean, there are lots of things that small groups don't have the money to buy, and if you had those kinds of things, you'd be a lot more valuable to the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other hands raised.
Thank you. And I would like to say, just before we move on to comment, or excuse me, to the vote, that those are all great suggestions by Gregory. And sound systems are varied in their capacity. And I know for a large event that the Railroad Square Music Festival is, that it requires a sound system. And in all transparency, this line item was dedicated to having a sound system, but their needs are quite expansive and larger than potentially a bought sound system stored at Community Action Partnership would provide. So I see both sides of the coin there. So I'm happy to discuss that further if anyone from the public would like to talk about that, being that I have a vast experience. So now going on to the vote. Danielle?
Yes. All right. Member Barnett?
Approve.
Member Bartholow?
Yes.
Member Inocencio?
Yes.
Member Lange?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Rom?
Absolutely.
Member Square?
Yes.
Member Steffi?
Yes.
Member Wiseman?
Yes, approve.
And Chair Grapes? You're on mute.
Before I vote, I just want to again do a logistics thing. I know I'm very excited about. Member Square is performing in the Railroad Square Music Festival. So question about a vote.
He's not getting paid through the grant, so I don't think it's a conflict of interest.
Okay. Have to put it out there for the public. Yeah. So I just want to be transparent as much as possible. My vote is yes, with a little bit of hesitation, but I'm getting over it.
Okay, great. So that grant application is also approved. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all gathering that information, and thanks for the great comments and getting through that. Moving on to item number 6.2, which is our community presentation from Santa Rosa Together. Santa Rosa Together is a nonpartisan coalition of volunteer residents and over 20 organizations. They will present their idea for creation of a network of neighborhoods to the Community Advisory Board. Their presentation was provided in an attachment in our agenda, and we do have a presenter here. Cecile, you are here to join us to make the presentation this evening.
Thank you, Chair Graves. Excuse me. I am so happy to be back here. Some of you know me as a former CAB member. And I can't tell you how happy I am to be here and to be presenting. I'm so impressed with the people that are part of the CAB right now. And so it makes me a little bit jealous that I'm not on the CAB anymore. So yeah, I'm going to go right into a short presentation because we've given you information from Santa Rosa Together, which is who I am here representing. And basically, I want to entitle this Investing in Social Capital. And the way that we look at, let me pull up my notes, sorry. The way that we're looking at a network, well, actually, we want to call it a council of neighborhoods because we are advocating for CAB to become a council of neighborhoods. Now, we would love for you to be partnering with us if that happens or not. You know, all we can do is advocate. So we are advocating because we look at a strong network of neighborhoods as a very important way or structure or infrastructure for a local democracy. Okay, so I do want to say, first of all, that Santa Rosa Together we're a group of nonpartisan coalition. So we try not to let our politics actually interfere with the way that we operate. We don't advocate for any political side or the other. And we do have different political beliefs within our group. But we are trying to renew and revitalize the democracy on a local level. We started doing quarterly neighborhood meetings, and we actually often partnered with the city to do it. And then we had a really big one, a 2-day quarterly meeting, and we invited Jim Deers, who was the first director of neighborhoods in Seattle. And he came and inspired us. We had county and city government and city staff, and then we also had community members on the second day. But that was maybe a month before the pandemic hit. So we had this really inspiring thing, and then the pandemic hit and we were no longer going outside. So we want to kind of revive that around. We are working on, we had one quarterly neighborhood and then we had to go back indoors. But we actually believe, and this is in your packet, that we do believe that a robust network of neighborhoods would actually empower CAB members, and it would build capacity for CAB members to lead groups through dialogue and problem solving, if that's what you're interested in. There are many benefits to a strong network of neighborhoods. And just imagine if, well, first of all, our democracy depends on strong voluntary community and neighborhood organizations. So imagine that most of our neighborhoods are strong, and it allows more of our residents to become actively engaged in what happens in your own neighborhood and in the city. If we had to make decisions on a neighborhood land use nearby, or a park, or what we want to bring like to a community, maybe there's no supermarket like close by. So there was a decision to be made on bringing in a healthy food market. And imagine that you were making those decisions together, and you knew, like, you were so well organized that you knew somebody was missing from that decision making. And you're aware of who you are, basically. So imagine that's possible. Imagine that Santa Rosa made a significant breakthrough progress on work that provides affordable housing, or we've developed community-based policing, and we're addressing climate change. It's empowering for everybody to be on that level of engagement. So now that we're, a 7-district city, we've created an open government task force implementation report. It's still being worked on, but we pretty much have that. We have the Office of Community Engagement, which is, it's relatively new. We have an equity officer, which is relatively new. So we have all of these things that required effort and advocacy. So we do want to propose as a top priority that the council adopts an ordinance that elevates the role. We believe it's elevating the role of the Community Advisory Board to become a council of neighborhoods. John McKnight, who is the co-founder of Asset-Based Community Development Institute, said about community safety, there are 2 primary determinants of our local safety. One is how many neighbors we know by name, and the other is how often we're present and associated in public life outside our houses. Police activity is a minor protection compared to these 2 community actions. So the benefits of a strong local group of neighborhoods making decisions for themselves and engaging in decisions of importance to the whole city. It increases social capital and social cohesion, and that means we're getting to know each other. We are always in communication. We are actively increasing our awareness of local services and programs because we're interacting with city agencies. We have less conflictive problem resolution, so there are fewer conflicts. We're learning how to make decisions together. Increased civic engagement is a given. It actually increases in terms of public health and healthy neighborhoods. It increases population resilience and community resilience. So we're helping each other out. It actually reduces crime rates. It increases property values. It stimulates local economic activity. These are all the things that are possible if we're making decisions together and we're imagining what we want in our neighborhoods. So I'm being very aspirational, but we actually think that a true democracy is aspirational. And we're seeing what can happen right in the world now with a stronger democracy and with people helping each other. So I want to comment on the work that you're doing, and you're looking at the strategic plan. It's the refresh. I went and looked at, I watched your February meeting, and really, you know, first of all, I did have a little bit of, you know, remembering the work that we did. We have community members in that strategic plan process. It was a really robust, like kind of event and thinking. And Member Barnett, I hear you. Block parties. I'm with you. She's been saying that for years, and I actually agree. I think that we want flexibility in the way that neighborhoods are able to do things. It's hard because there are all these constraints that we have to consider, safety constraints, but the more we can make that easier, the better. And the more fun it is, the better. But some of the things I heard you say are actually, they dovetail with the idea of infrastructure for a neighborhood group. So imagine that's an overriding concept for CAB. You're helping neighborhood groups with infrastructure, being able to form. So I heard that you want to actually actualize some of the strategies that are there, excuse me, in the strategic plan. Empowered diversity of voices, that somebody said creating structure. Well, I identified it as creating structure, but a packet of about how, like a roadmap or a how-to 5 steps in creating an organization, a community group. I just want to remind us, some of those who were here for the quarterly neighborhood meeting with Jim Deers, neighborhood groups start small. It's however groups are organizing, you start there. They're groups that already exist. One of the members talked about how she was back, she's a mom, and she and her husband were back on in the parks for playing baseball with kids. And parents talk. I mean, that is a natural group that, you know, start getting them to think about, like, go to those meetings, show up, hear what their concerns are, ask them what their concerns are, and then like take it back to a council member. That's the kind of thing and the kind of structures we were trying to create with the some of the tools, like the list. So that was so much a part of, I felt so strongly about that. And we did have a lot of names on that list. It was something like hundreds. And it was because we started with small groups. We asked people just to name groups that got together. And we tried to create tiers. So those are the kinds of things that will help a neighborhood network, creating that structure, for CAB to help create that structure. The only other thing, one of the other members talked about how in some neighborhoods they're too tired to organize and maybe worrying about like trying to figure out how they're going to get food. Well, CAB could actually support helping those groups, and maybe a place where food can be given out becomes the place where they organize or where they talk together. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to kind of present to you of why it's so, sorry, my throat is really dry and I, of course, don't have water here. But I do want to ask, we did want to hear from you. And we did put some of our questions were basically, what do you think about a community-wide network of neighborhood organization that's supported by the office? Yeah.
I'll jump in there. So appreciate that presentation. And I know I believe I may be incorrect in this, and Danielle can help me out with it. This may be the first community group that has provided the presentation, at least in the time that I've been here for a couple years. I don't know if that's all time's sake, but I'm prefacing what I'm saying here that way, because this might be a little bit new for us as well as for you, kind of how this logistics of this goes. So if I'll let you wrap up your presentation as far as what you have to say, but after your presentation is done, then I will open it up to the board to ask questions of you. And then if we'll have a discussion, and Danielle might have to help me out with this as well. But this is our time to ask questions of you, and then we may have a further discussion at a later time after this presentation.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, of course, I do want to hear from you, and if you have questions for me, but I can't really ask questions of people in the group. Is that there's no, I'm just going to follow your procedure, your process. So lead me in the direction you want.
All right. Do you have closing words on your presentation?
I guess I just want to say that I really feel like the CAB is pointing in that direction from what I heard in the strategic plan, that there was a lot of energy for you to be interacting with community. And I see that personally as work in the beginning of supporting, but we want to see, of course, a very formalized structure. And that's kind of our, we would like to see you being involved in that. So that's it. I'll let you ask questions if you want to.
Great, thank you. I want to get you a glass of water.
Thank you. I do too.
Okay, so at this time, and remember that you did have that attachment embedded into the agenda this evening, as well as you just heard from Cecile, a bit of a presentation from Santa Rosa Together. Are there any questions from the board for Cecile at this time? And member Steffi, I'll start with you.
Thank you. Hi, Cecile. Thank you for that. I can tell there's a lot of passion around the group and the whole idea of neighborhoods, and that meeting you said you had where you were inspired a month before everything shut down. So I can appreciate you wanting to bring that back. I'll frame it maybe as a question. I'm curious, it sounds like you have ideas about where you think CAB should go as far as how it engages with the community. Have you guys been in touch with the charter review folks? Because I'm assuming that would be something maybe you've already been doing. And if so, I'm curious if you've had dialogue with them and what you've heard from them.
So one of our steering committee members is on the charter committee. And we actually feel like there's no need to change the charter. It would accommodate but to make it a more robust structure for a council of neighborhoods would be to change maybe by ordinance, because it's easier. You can change ordinances. The charter is solid for 10 years, I think. So you don't necessarily want to do that. Even if there's, we would like to see the title of a council of neighborhoods, but I think we have heard some pushback on that. But we're advocating for it. Does that answer your question there? That yes, the charter doesn't need to be changed, really.
Yeah, that answers my question. And then it leads me to another one, because when you're kind of talking, like you said, aspirationally, but when you talk about expanding the role of the CAB, I'd like to know personally as a CAB member, what that would look like in reality, right? And maybe you can't answer that right now, but we are a group of volunteers, and a lot of us volunteer in lots of ways. And we have our, it's been different since COVID. We haven't been able to get out there and engage, but that's one concern or question is like, what does that look like in real life? And then the other is when you talk about a council of neighborhoods, my last comment is, you look at COVID the last 2 years, and I know a lot of us on the CAB, we had a list of all the previous, if you will, neighborhood groups. And a lot of us took like 10 of those and reached out and tried to get a hold of folks and find out, is your neighborhood group still happening? Do you need help maybe getting it revitalized? Of my 10 I reached out to, I only heard from one. And I tried hard to reach out. So I wonder if we should take some baby steps now after COVID and just make sure we can maybe assist neighborhood groups becoming again and communicating again and structure and organizing again. And then maybe later think about them all forming a council. I just tend to look at things in small segments, if you will, so that we can have luck with meeting our objectives. So I'll leave that there, but I wanted to at least share that with you.
Thank you. I didn't hear a question for me, but I so appreciate baby steps also.
Thank you, Member Steffi. And before we move on, I did hear a question in there. So I want to make sure that, and Member Steffi, correct me if I'm wrong, but you asked about expanding the role of CAB, and what does that look like for this proposal? Was that correct?
It was, but I really didn't think necessarily that Cecile was going to answer that right now. But that's something to take back to Santa Rosa together, maybe, because at least for me, and we should hear from other CAB members, it sounds great. Like, it just doesn't sound like there's a lot of, I don't know, meat behind it as far as what that would really look like and how the role of CAB members might change. And if it's doable. And I also, while I have the floor again, I know the Office of Community Engagement, they do a lot of projects. You heard Danielle's update earlier. And I know in the material you sent out, it said, I think, expand the role, or it seems like you also were requiring in your vision a lot more of their resources. And that's a concern for me, just because since I've been on CAB, I know how much they're already doing with a really small staff. So again, not necessarily a question, although it was a question, Chair Graves, but I didn't think it would be answered necessarily tonight. So thank you.
And what I will say is we do see with the districtization that there could be an expansion of the member of CABs, and maybe even the expansion of more community engagement, Office of Community Engagement, not just, if we really want a strong democracy, local democracy, where we have, maybe funneling into associations that are bigger in each district, where people are doing the work. In some cities, it's so well organized that they're actually paid positions, neighborhood associations. So, I don't know the answer ultimately, but it's not about adding and putting on more work for the number of people that are in existence right now.
Right, I appreciate that. And one more thing, I did do some research on the Seattle group the that man you mentioned,
Mhm.
they have over 50 employees in that neighborhood group, if you will.
Mhm.
Now they have like 3 times the amount of people as we do in Santa Rosa,
Mhm.
but still that's a lot of people. And so it's an interesting model to look at. And I personally don't see getting from here to there in any short order, if that was the goal. So again, I'm taking up too much time, but I at least wanted to share that I done the research on the Seattle group, and it was interesting that they have a huge amount of staff. So anyway,
Thank you.
person. Thank you.
Member Rom?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So thank you, Member Steffi, and thank you for acknowledging the time constraint right there. I saw Member Rom's hand up, and then Member Lange, you'll be next. Thank you.
Hi. So Member Steffi, she took my thunder by expanding the role of CAB. But my other question was, is Santa Rosa Together not only talking to CAB, is there other organizations or boards or groups that you're trying to gather as well?
Yeah, so there are different funding sites or groups out there as well. And so one of the neighborhood associations, South Park, for instance, got an influx of money from Providence, St. Joseph Health. And they're doing a lot of work because they were given money. And so people can use that money and get out there and do stuff. So I think that, of course, there's foundation money, but we do want the city to also recognize that it's an important thing, and we are advocating for it, for institutionally a structure of a network of neighborhoods. And of course, it can be done in baby steps. We can't just have something overnight that occurs. We do see this as a step, in our way. It has to be where it works for Santa Rosa, not implementing something. I mean, there are other models, not just Seattle out there.
Okay, thank you.
Member Lange?
Hi, yeah, hi, Cecile. So Member Lange will take your next. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I do just have some things that are coming up for me that are concerning that I would offer as points of feedback for you to take back to the group.
Thank you.
First being, this is very aspirational, but it also doesn't really embody the diverse lifestyles that folks live in the community, and recognizes the difference of lived experience that people have. For example, assuming that folks are not civically engaged because they don't know about things. They may just have to work really hard, 1 or 2 jobs to maintain their households. We have a number of community members that are experiencing housing insecurities at high cyclical rates. And when we look at the demographics of who that impacts, it's also our communities of color. So when we think about the intersection of the disparity and the ways in which they can engage and or see excitement about something at this level, these are folks barely trying to get by day to day and survive and thrive. I think taxing this type of board and the city with an additional expansion, knowing that their priorities and resources have been on addressing those very issues. Again, long-term shot, if everybody had housing security and a place to live and knowing where they were laying their heads at night, and there were like nice and bubbly neighborhoods that we all could live in, I think it would fare well. But we definitely have a dynamic of haves and have-nots that are divided between freeways and hillsides. And I think that that takes away from the opportunity for things like this to be true when people are really trying to just get by on the day-to-day. I look at the neighborhood and community that I live in. People are working class. There's a lot of renters and a lot of folks just trying to keep their heads above water. I don't really see that there would be aspirational engagement, but I do see what gets posted on Nextdoor, and it's pretty targeted and mean. And so if that's the group that's governing what happens in my neighborhood, I have grave concerns about what that looks like, because those are the homeowners, the haves, that are making decisions for the have-nots, myself, a renter, right? And the lived experience is very different. The opportunity for access is very different. I think this, if we lived in a place that was large and had the support and resources to make a model like this come to light, I think it would be kind of cool. But I think we have to really think about where we live and what's happening and what's taking place. And I'm not sure if you all sat with the data of the Portrait of Sonoma, but Black residents live 10 years less than any other demographic in this county. So while we want to look at how people can be more engaged, I heard safety thrown out there in some really complex ways that don't necessarily matriculate to the data that I know to be true. I think it'll be really important to recognize that, again, maybe we should look at the lived experience that all folks are having and really think about a model that could serve or work for those different nuances, especially as we're navigating the pandemic, loads of racism and systemic injustice that exist in our community and within the city itself, and the complexity around the economic insecurities, and folks don't have a home. And until I think we really look at targeting how we support and elevate and amplify those needs, something like this just kind of glosses over the fact that there are people who don't have essential needs in their world.
Thank you. I will, and I would love to actually learn more from you and take this conversation offline. I personally am a renter and a working, really, I consider myself working class. So I'm not a homeowner that, you know, and I still see this as a possible working model, but I so appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And Member Innocent, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I have a couple comments. Not sure if it's really a question, but first, thank you for presenting. I've seen this effort, and I've seen the model in cities that are much bigger, like Los Angeles or Seattle, and I could see how it works well, just with that level of just having a larger population, being able to have money flow into these neighborhood groups. But I think, at least in my own experience, the most precious resource is time, and I think creating a neighbor or a council of neighborhoods and neighborhood groups puts the responsibility on the neighborhood and challenges and taxes their time to things that maybe they don't have. So while I really, like the idea of it, I think we just need to increase our capacity to do community engagement, which I know, our Office of Community Engagement is doing. But I think spending our precious resources, engaging with those communities, with people who are paid to do that, I think is ultimately what's going to benefit Santa Rosa and the community as a whole. I think it takes a lot of social capital to create a neighborhood group and to maintain a neighborhood group. You need to know planning. You need to know how to reach out to people, who to talk to in the city. It's a lot of work. And unless it's paid in some way, I don't see it being sustainable with our current, at least in my neighborhood, I don't see it being sustainable. But thank you for the presentation. I think it's a great idea, and when executed well, I think it'd be bring a lot of benefit, but I don't see that right now.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you very much.
All right, I don't see any other questions. I will echo many of the concerns that Member Lange brought up. And I know I've shared this with the CAB before, that I had met with members of Santa Rosa Together back in January, just as somewhat of a listening session, and trying to do research, and actually brought up the question of whether or not Santa Rosa Together wanted to make a presentation. At that time, they didn't want to make a presentation to the CAB, and then later changed course, and that's why this presentation is happening. And I too have concerns. I have concerns with equity and having, I'll step backwards just a little bit. I know from talking to folks that were part of the formation of the Community Advisory Board that it was aspirational in its formation as well. And that community versus neighborhoods. I don't want to have a versus right there, but if we're just talking about just the words in a title, I feel that community is wide serving and neighborhoods may be narrowing the focus actually. And although I hear and I respect and acknowledge you saying that this would expand the role of CAB, I believe that the perception could be that it would actually decrease our role and or decrease our impact. So my concern with equity being that not everybody identifies with their neighborhood. There are deep concerns with that. I believe Member Lange was actually speaking to that to some degree, and I agree with her. There are not just renters, but there are people of low income. There are people that are, workers that are very much not in our mainstream of our society. There are people of color, communities of color. There are people that have age issues, ability, different abilities. I'm thinking of skilled nursing facilities. I'm thinking of group homes. So when we're talking about neighborhoods, sometimes my reflection on that is that not necessarily everybody is included in their neighborhood structure when a neighborhood group is first being formed, or even if it has been formed for a long time. And my questions around that would be, what steps do you see that a neighborhood council will be more representative of Santa Rosa and address concerns of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and has Santa Rosa together come up with ideas around that?
So I will just point out that the idea is to go to groups that already exist. So if you have like board and care homes, for instance, where people, or places where people are developmentally disabled or homeless. We did a project called Homeless Talk, and we engaged people who were not housed in our conversations. And we brought people together along with homeless people, and we actually had conversations, and we gathered the data from the conversations, and we arrived at how we could actually help people who were unhoused. So it's not about just all of the wealthy people coming together. It's actually trying to organize and having other people in the neighborhood recognize what is in their neighborhood. Like who do we live with? I happen to live in a low income housing. And, so I'm going to start here. And I'm going to talk to people in my building, and I'm going to find out, what are their concerns? And you start there. You start by listening and hearing from them. So our model is not at all, or this idea is not at all trying to bring in only people who have time. Going and talking to people is not that hard. And people do stop and talk to you. If you go to them. So, there are many ways for us to have conversation, but the problem is that we're not doing it outside of our own silos. So going down to a more local level at least allows that to happen. And then we come together, we try to bring different people together to make decisions. We don't envision this at all as a, you can start by just one building, like me in my building. I could go around, talk to people. We get together. I don't know. We have some event, we get together, and then we go talk to our council member. We invite our council member in. When we advocate, we meet with council members. They want to know what solutions people are coming up with, not just what are their concerns. How do they want to solve it? And that's a place to start. So I appreciate that all of these concerns and the tension that some of the presentation brought out. And that is the failure of my presentation, because we don't envision that at all. So, oh yeah, so I guess there's another question. I'll let you facilitate.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a failure, but I think it's an opportunity to recognize that there are some real harms that happen in some neighborhoods, and it can be triggering and it can bring up a lot for folks. So when we think about really aspirational plans at this level, there needs to be a level of like trauma-informed engagement that needs to be at the center of that. And I appreciate you sharing where you live, but quite frankly, I have neighbors that had Confederate flags up because they thought we were going to rob them. Right? That would deter me from engaging at a level like this and recognizing who's coming to the table. And lots of those dynamics exist in various neighborhoods where police and law enforcement are weaponized against neighbors, right? So there's some like intrinsic issues that exist. And while I heard loud and clear, ideologies vary, and that's the root of why you all came together. When people are living in these environments, that is not always the safest way that they could come to the table or even come to engage at this type of level. So I think, again, while it is envisioned to be a very like lovely initiative, there's some real deeply rooted challenges that would prohibit people from actually having human conversation and human engagement. And I think that is what I want to make sure is loud and clear, outside of an assumption made on an assumption that may be coming from my words. It is literally, some neighborhoods are not safe to engage door to door.
Yeah. And there's no reason for that to be forced. I agree with you. There is no reason to go somewhere that people don't really want to talk. I did consensus work, and we were meant to just ignore the beware of dog sign and go up to the door anyway. So there's, I kind of learned to push through a little bit, but trauma-informed care, absolutely. I also do work for public health. And if we have nothing to offer, there's no reason to ask somebody for something. But there are ways that I think what we need are people who are part of the community that are maybe somewhat interested in doing that work. There are ways, but you're right. I so appreciate you bringing in trauma-informed care. Absolutely necessary.
So I'm not seeing any other questions at this time. And Cecile, appreciate your willingness to come forward, Santa Rosa Together, for their time and energy that they have put into their thoughts around a proposal for a neighborhood council. At this time, there is no action item for us, I believe, but we may have a discussion about this later. We are going to talk about our strategic planning, continuing on with that later this evening. So I have a feeling that this will get intertwined quite readily in that, some of these thoughts. So I just want to, again, appreciate you and thank you for coming in front of us this evening and sharing this presentation. And I'm sure that you will be, and Santa Rosa Together will be in touch with Danielle and Magali in our community engagement office for any further advancements that Santa Rosa Together makes.
Thank you for inviting us. I appreciate it.
And at this time, Danielle, I'll need some guidance from you, actually, if I go to public comment or.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. So public comments, we are headed in that direction. Madeline, are you still with us?
Yes, at this time, there are currently no hands raised for public comment.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I should give that a second, but there are no hands raised. So I will bring it back to the cab. And as I understand it, after a presentation and after public comment on that, I move on to the next agenda item. Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong.
You are good to go.
Okay. Let me catch my spot here. We have closed out item 6.2 and moving on to item 6.3, the continuation of the CAB strategic plan refresh. So the CAB will continue working on updating their strategic plan and prioritizing objectives brainstorming that were brainstormed at the previous meeting. There was a CAB strategic roadmap that was included with our agenda this evening, as well as objectives and priorities list that was developed in our last meeting in February. And I can see my friend Juan Lopez is here this evening joining us. Thank you, Juan, and will help to facilitate our conversation around narrowing potentially our objectives and priorities list to something that is more functional moving forward. And I just have to say, before we go on, Juan, because you're coming in potentially a little blind to this, is that we just had a rousing conversation or questions and comments from regarding our last presenter. And I do realize that some of that might come up because we have talked quite a bit about engaging of neighborhoods. And I did make a comment earlier around the difference between neighborhoods and communities. I am very invested in neighborhoods, but I do realize that neighborhoods are not necessarily what everyone identifies with. And there are many groups that people identify with and or cultures and or a time of your life or many other facets of an experience that people identify with. So I just want to make that clear that sometimes we use the word neighborhood and we might be meaning something else as we're walking into this next discussion. If you want to clarify yourself as you bring up about a topic, please do. We're here to work together and to listen and to hopefully prioritize our list. So with that, I will move on to Juan. And did I set you up well enough, Juan? Are you ready to go?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I've been on since 6 o'clock, so I've seen and heard all of the different comments. But before we proceed, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you or the board if you needed 5 minutes for a bio break before we jump into this. So that's up to you. What's the pleasure of the group?
Yeah, it is 8 o'clock. Thank you for bringing that up, Juan. I'm remiss that I didn't see that. It is 8 o'clock and a 5-minute break would be called for at this time. So let's go for 6. I call it 6.
All right. We will resume in 6 minutes then.
Thank you, everyone.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. I'm glad we did that because the heater turned on in my office and it blows directly down on top of me. I was like,
Don't let them see you sweat. Is that
yeah, right. Oh, yeah.
So that, is there a time limit? Do we just continue or is there a hard stop?
We don't have a hard stop, so we can continue unless the board says no. or unless we lose our quorum.
Okay.
Yeah, but being that we've been going for 2 hours,
yeah,
already, between you and I, let's shoot for like 20 minutes.
Okay.
You know, I know that's lightning fast speed, somewhat of a time warp kind of a thing, but
I think it could be done. I think we just have to decide.
You're so awesome. Like you're just beyond awesome. I appreciate your energy walking into the room or the Zoom or whatever you want to say.
We just have to determine what our set number is and then decide how to select.
Yeah.
So it looks like everybody needed a little brief break.
We'll keep that on the sidelines for now.
All right, it has been 6 minutes. So if folks can hear us, come back, please.
There's an old school rap song that somewhere in there had the line 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh, you're on. And that is my reference to 6 minutes. Whenever anybody asks me how much time I need, I say 6 minutes.
Okay.
You gotta be old school to know that one.
And you got to be fast to move at 6 minutes as well. So I see that we still have some folks joining us. I'll give it another minute before we start.
We just got to get them on screen. So as we get these, Member Wiseman, Member Square, and Member Rom, if you're hearing me and you can come up on screen, we need at least 2 of you to get going, I believe.
Ooh.
Thank you, Member Rom. And Member Wiseman, thank you. So at this time, we are resuming our Community Advisory Board meeting after our short break. So I call us once again to order and handing over the floor to our facilitator, Juan Lopez, who will get us through prioritizing our objectives from our priority list. And hopefully we can get, I believe our goal was 3 of these priorities to focus on over this next year. And behind the scenes, Juan and I were just chatting, and we're hoping to do this in 20 minutes or less.
So that means I need to work fast. I'd just like to encourage you all, if you're sitting, please stand, stretch. We could do this while you're moving because you have certainly been on Zoom for 2.5+ hours, and usually that does impact people. So as you all recall, in February, we discussed the roadmap. We walked through some of it. And more clearly, what we decided because of COVID was that a number of the goals that you had established had not been, the CAB had not had a chance to really begin to work on some of those things because of the pandemic and the protocols that were in place. So shortly after that, after the discussion, what we did is moved into brainstorming, and the question was asked of the group, let's do some open brainstorming, come up with a list of items that are important to you. And these would be things that you would like to work on between now and the end of the year. And so we had, I think, a very good brainstorming session. And I believe most of you have the list of items in front of you. Is that correct? All right. So if we look at the list, first off, in terms of all of those bulleted points, are there any clarifying questions regarding what's on that list? Because it comes, again, from all of you. Anything that's unclear, this would be the right time to ask the question.
Juan, I do see a question, Member Rom.
No, my question was, we don't have a list. Which list are we referring to? I'm sorry.
Oh,
Can we actually, Juan, I'm gonna ask if we can put that up on the screen.
Thank you.
We're working on it.
Thank you.
One note that I had, Juan, was that we can just strike the Wednesday night market. That's not available to us to participate in.
Okay.
That was one of the bullet points. So when we see that come up on screen.
Okay.
And also revisiting Neighbor Fest, that's not available to us. So that's something else that can be stricken. It's not going to be available to us this year, I should say, in this time period. So that can also be stricken from the list.
Okay. Any others? Madeline, are you trying to bring the?
I am. Hold on.
Oh,
hold on. I got it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Danielle. I almost had it. Thanks.
There it is. Sorry, I don't want to make it any smaller so folks can't see it. So
did you
let me
scroll
know.
down a bit? Yeah.
Okay.
Danielle, are you able to just strike through those two items that I mentioned?
This is a PDF, so I can't do it on a PDF.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, and in the agenda, it was also included as part of the attachment, if that would be easier for some of you to open up on your computer as well.
It was listed in the minutes. If you just want to open the minutes and go down to that section, the whole list is on the minutes.
There we go. Okay. So, and then Wednesday at market, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. So I know we looked at this rather quickly, but I was asking if there was any clarifying questions with respect to the items that are on the list.
Looks like there's no questions, Juan.
Okay. Then my second question is there anything missing that you may have put up on this list when we did the brainstorming, and as you look at it, you go, wait, what happened to that brilliant idea I had? Any of that, anything missing?
Yeah, this is for, I brought up looking at newsletters, seeing if CAB could take a role or something like that. Oh, there it is. I didn't see that.
Fun neighborhood newsletters?
Yes, never mind.
Okay. Good, thank you though. Good for bringing it up.
Let me know if you want historical information too brought in here, Leslie, or Chair Graves, sorry.
Thank you. And I think we will go forward with narrowing down our priorities with Juan's help. If historical information is needed, we'll circle back around to you, but.
Okay, good. So in February, when we were going through the brainstorming list, we had stated that what we were seeking to do was to come up with a set of priorities. And we talked about 3, maybe 4, but being clear about some priorities that were realistic and at the same time took into account what is the capacity of the CAP board to get some of this work done, because we always have to look at that as well. So in terms of looking at the list, let's decide, are you comfortable with going with 3 as a group? That was a question?
And there was no one on that one that had dissent on that. So we're going with 3.
Okay. So as we look at this list, I think the most efficient way to do it is to ask each of you to identify 3 from this list. And that what we could do afterwards, after you identify your 3 and we hear them out, and oh wait, there's a question. Member Bartholow?
Yes, thank you. Just looking at this list, it seems like some of these could be kind of grouped together as one or condensed. So, I mean, I'm just looking at the first 2.
Yes.
Reactivate and reconvene neighborhood groups and facilitate neighborhood groups, how to start a neighborhood group. I mean, those 2 seem like so close that they might be one thing. I don't know, just a thought that might make it a little bit easier on us.
Mm-hmm. Are there others that people look at in terms of the list and say, you know, those 2 look pretty close, we could combine them? Is there any others that are as natural as the first 2?
There's no hands raised for a comment on that. So
I did. Sorry, I was a little
sorry.
slow.
Yes.
Can I go?
Right ahead.
Okay. I think maybe the develop the hybrid tools to make available to educate the public and document the tangible benefits of CAB, I think could be a combined opportunity.
Okay. Are people comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions or disagreements to that?
Can I go further and say maybe even the team building exercises is built into the tangible benefits of CAB?
You can say that, but my understanding of the team building is work for CAB itself in terms of developing a cohesive group and,
Okay.
and how you work together.
Okay, I'll leave it.
Okay. So thus far, what I see is that we're taking the first 2 bullet points and really forming that as one. And then we're taking the document tangible benefits, the CAB to share with the community and develop hybrid tools. We're combining that. So those now represent the second one. Is there any others that you see naturally that may fit?
I do. I have, I guess, more of a question. Under Wildfire Ready in May, there's so many events that the group, that Danielle and Magali's group are doing. That's like a different animal, it seems like, than everything else we're talking about here. So either it goes away or maybe it's, you know, attend and engage with the community at all the events. Just a thought.
Yeah, I would ask Magali to respond to that because in February, that was an item that she presented to the group as a set activity already. Magali, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just want to kind of add a little bit more about the Wildfire Ready event. Is pretty much put together, and we would want CAB to table that. And again, I just want to remind folks that it's sort of in lieu of like Neighbor Fest and sort of a placeholder for that.
So is it something that they have to choose or not choose as a priority?
I would say they would have to choose it as a priority, or decide on whether or not they want it. With NeighborFest, we had a team of cab members for every NeighborFest to help staff. So it was like volunteers for each event. So we would need a team of volunteers for this event from the cab.
Okay.
Danielle, just correct me again if I'm wrong, just jumping in real quick. But we already have that on an agenda item coming up with our event schedule. So we can address that there and maybe have this be a little bit broader scope of our priorities moving forward.
Sure.
So are we just taking this out of this list? Is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. I'm committed to being there in May. So I'm getting 2 more folks. I bet we can do it.
Okay. So then based on the comment here, it doesn't necessarily have to be voted on as a priority. It's already a done deal. Correct? Okay. So then that leaves us, if we look at it, with, and I'll just read through it, reconnect with community. Well, actually, I'll go back to the first one. Reactivate, reconvene neighborhood groups and facilitate neighborhood groups, and how to start a neighborhood group. So that could be a manual of sort. I think that's how we talked about it. The other is reconnect with community using parks, fields, and creeks, and gather data on how people want to connect with the city. Boost CAB's overall engagement with and empower the community and city decision making. Fund block parties with Community Improvement Grant Program, general block party outside of NF. Document tangible benefits the CAB to share with the community, and develop hybrid tools and make available to educate the public on what city government does and how to access services, Civic 101 videos. Fund neighborhood newsletters, making a presence in all 7 districts. Use data from Portrait of Sonoma County to recognize issues of inequity and serve community members where they are. Team building exercises and trainings. And I guess just as a point of clarification, that's more internal facing. At least that's how I had heard it. If I'm not correct, please state so. And then the other is explore the diversity of the community within the areas of interest stated above. Do you think, let me just ask this question of the group, do you believe or do you think we could combine explore the diversity of the community with the areas of interest stated above along with the portrait of Sonoma, or do you see them distinctly different?
I see them together.
Okay. Others? Any problems with doing that? Okay. I will then move to do that unless there's any disagreement.
Can I make an observation?
Please.
I would almost think that you could move this up into this work here with neighborhood groups.
The last bullet point?
Use the data from the Portrait of Sonoma and then exploring the diversity. This really should be part of this work right here.
I support that too.
You all in agreement with that? Okay. Can you move it in to that area? I tell you, it's it brings facilitators great pleasure when the list starts to shrink and combine and people are still happy with it. So with that, then, as we look at the remaining items, what I'd like you to do is pick your top 3, and then we'll go around and see what your top three are, and we'll document them. We don't necessarily have to finalize that, but at least we'll get a tally of the top three, and then see where we shake out there. We have a question from member Bartholo. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. I was just looking at now bullet point 2 and bullet point 3, and I think those can be combined as well.
Those two?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see, reconnect with community.
And actually, I think that the sub bullet point on number 1, using the data from Portrait of Sonoma County, I think that should be a sub bullet point to the 3 that every one of the 3 that we pick.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You want to say more about that? Why?
Yeah, because I think we need to do that with regard to everything that we do. So
that's the lens.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so I mean, I don't know how others feel about combining 2 and 3, but you know, it's we're wanting to convene with people in parks to find out how they want to connect with the city. And it seems like the other side of the coin of that is empowering the community and city decision making. You know, we're coming together, we're finding out what they want to do and what they, you know, how they can do that essentially. That's what that looks like to me. And then again, I would use the data from Portrait as a sub bullet point under those 2 combined things.
So this might read boost CAB's overall engagement with and empower the community and city decision making by reconnecting with committee using parks, fields, and creeks, that kind of thing?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right, so we could combine those 2?
I have a comment on that. So respectfully, I agree with your second point to use that before Danielle moves them all together. I agree with the sub bullet point being useful in whatever we decide on our 3 priorities, but I would say to keep those 2 bullet points that you first mentioned separate, out of respect to our community services board that works and engages with the community in parks and through the Parks and Rec department. I feel whereas we could potentially engage with our community services board at a future date and do something in conjunction, it may not be appropriate for us to have parks as our engagement point when it is really their engagement point.
Okay. Excellent point.
That's a good catch. I didn't think about that.
I didn't think about the parks group. I was just thinking more generically about parks. So you're talking about the partnership with the parks as well. Okay.
What about this edit right here that I just made? We can change it back. Because it captures all of the community events right here.
Yeah, community events would be more appropriate for us rather than the park specifically. Their level of engagement in the parks has to also do with policy and use and all kinds of other aspects of the parks. I just don't want to muddle the ours and theirs and get a little confusing. It already is to the public sometimes.
So given that clarification, can we merge the 2 now since parks is out? Or do you still prefer to keep the 2 separate?
As it stands now, for me, it would lend itself to merging.
What's the pleasure of the group? Yes? No? Maybe?
Yeah, for me.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so how many do we have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And member Inocencio has his hand up.
Please.
Thank you. I think the making a presence in all 7 districts, I think that could be combined with either the first or second bullet point.
Yes. What do the rest of you think? Yep. I can't see the full gallery, so.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to move that up to the first one. Or you said the second one or the first one?
I think really it'll fit in both, but I think it goes better with the second one. So yeah.
Okay, got it. You were on it, Danielle. You're doing that telepathy thing. That's good. All right, so now the question is, and Madam Chair, please add your perspective on this because it came up while we were brainstorming. Do you think that last one, team building exercises, is really a particular project, or is that just something that the CAB board is going to engage in? Should it be on this list?
I understand the point being made for it to be on the list. I think maybe leave it on the list, but maybe we should do our top 3, signal our top 3 as individuals so that we can see where we all land as a group. So if we all went around and said, these are our top 3,
mm-hmm.
And take a tally, I'm sure we can take a tally of that. And then we will find out where the group has a majority for their top 3 focus.
Okay. And now we're down to 5 items, so it should make it easier to select your top 3. So why don't we, do you have your hand up still?
Yeah, so even though I brought up the neighborhood newsletters, I think that's more a tool to achieve the first 2 goals rather than a goal in itself. So I think I would be open to removing it, even though it's my bullet point, but I'd be definitely willing to remove it.
Remove it and move it somewhere else, or remove it knowing that it's going to be done anyways?
Removing it and seeing if, I guess just removing it, and if it turns out that we can, use newsletters to boost the overall engagement of CAB, then that's great. But if not, that's okay too.
Okay, sounds good. So we have another one removed. Now we're down to 4. Is that correct? Now,
Still 5.
5. Well, we thought team building. We may or may not vote on that one. Correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone can still vote.
Okay.
We're leaving it open for the vote.
Got it. Okay. So now is everybody ready to vote? Pick your top 3, write them down, and then when we go through a roll call, if you will, you'll state your top 3. We'll take notes on what those top 3 are, and then we could decide if we have time to kind of go through the process of prioritizing it or tallying it and getting it back to you. What do you prefer, Madam Chair?
Let's just go for tallying right now, and then we'll take a temperature read after that. So, and Danielle, we need to keep this public. So would you like to do this as a roll call vote? Or it's not really a vote. I can't call it a vote, but how do we best handle, I guess my question is, how do we best handle this? And I need to defer to staff. I'm sorry, Juan. I appreciate all of your assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so can I just call out everyone's name and they give me their numbers? We'll just say that, like, for example, bullet point 1 is number 1 and so on and so forth. Okay,
Correct.
That would work best.
Before you do that, Member Wiseman does have her hand up. I want to give her the floor.
Oh, okay. Yes?
Hi, sorry. Thank you. Just, would you mind, because I'm having trouble, I'm looking on my tiny screen. Would you mind just stating the 5?
Oh, sure.
Options or whatever we're calling them, recommendations?
Okay.
Please.
I'll read through them again, and then each of you will select your 3. So the first is reactivate, reconvene neighborhood groups, facilitate neighborhood groups, how to start a neighborhood group, and sub bullet point under that is use data from Portrait of Sonoma County to recognize issues of inequity and serve community members where they are. Explore the diversity of the community within the areas of interest stated above. The second item is boost CAB's overall engagement with and empower the community in city decision making by reconnecting with the community at community events and gather data on how people want to connect with the city, making a presence in all 7 districts. Number 3, fund block parties with community improvement grant program, general block party outside of NF. Number 4, document tangible benefits the CAB to share with the community, develop hybrid tools, and make available to educate the public on what city government does and how to access services, Civic 101 videos. And number 5, team building exercises, training internal. So those are the 5. And each of you will select your top 3, and then Danielle will do the roll call and you'll give your number to your top 3. And then we'll see where we shake out.
And Danielle, just a quick note, should we be stating them in specified order, 1, 2, and 3, first choice, second, just these are our 3?
These are our 3.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Starting with member Barnett.
3, 4, and 2.
4 and 2. Member Bartholow.
1, 2, and guess 4.
Okay. Member Inocencio.
1, 2, and 4.
2, 4. Member Lange.
1, 2, and 4.
Member Rom.
1, 2, 4.
I'm sensing a pattern. Member Square, looks like, Member Square, are you still here? He left us. Member Steffi.
1, 2, 4.
Member Wiseman.
1, 3, 4.
3, 4, and Chair Graves.
1, 2, and 4.
4. Thank you very much. I mean, overall, it looks like 1, 2, and 4 are the top 3 here.
Of the whole group, are we prepared to say those are the priorities you want to go forward with? If that received the most votes? Chair Graves?
Just, I want to put it out there if there's any compelling comments or other interests. And I'm not seeing, I'm seeing, oh, now I see Member Wiseman, did you just not put your hand down? Because I know you're on a small screen. It's challenging on a small screen. Thank you. And Member Steffi?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that really we're going to get grants and grant requests in every 3 months, and we could definitely fund block parties as part of that overall charter of CAB. So I don't see that as like losing out, because that's kind of going to happen naturally, and we can choose to fund them or not. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
Thank you for that point.
Any board member want to make a passionate appeal if one of your items didn't get selected, and this is your opportunity to convince your fellow board members why you're right? Doesn't look like it's the problem with long meetings, right? Okay, so it almost seems, and we have an opportunity to come back and discuss this, but it seems like most of the votes went with 1, 2, and 4, and as member Steffi said, that the item around 3 is going to be popping up on a quarterly basis. So there's an opportunity to look at funding for block parties in that context as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I would say that you arrived at your priorities. There's no going back, no buyer's remorse. You've come up with what you're going to work on, and hopefully you considered capacity in terms of your energy, and also the ability realistically to get it done. And I would just say, based on what I read, they all seem very realistic. And I really like the idea of putting the portrait up there as a sub bullet point of each item, because it would also add that focus that you've been talking about. So is there anything else you need of me?
One, I just need your attention so I can tell you how wonderful you are. And we thank you so much. Appreciate your time and energy joining us, not only this evening for this time, but for that preview time that you were spending with us when we didn't see you. Always a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you again. We'll be chatting in the future.
Okay, sounds good. My only comment to the board is that I really did like in that presentation the level of discourse that took place, the respect for a diversity of thought, but also the clarity at which you really emphasized your perspectives. And I just believe that that's a good sign of a board that's working well and has some good emotional intelligence when you're looking at all of that. So it's a pleasure to work with you all. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
And with that, we do need to bring this to public comment.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
All right, thank you. And that closes out item number 6.3, moving right along to 6.4, upcoming events. This is yet another discussion and prioritizing of the events that were attached to our agenda. This might also need to be brought up on screen for some events that we have the potential to table at in 2022. And we could get some members to sign up on the table currently. I'm just going to throw it out there right now. I'm going to jump in right now and start it off. I am available for May 21st, June 18th, and August 4th, and I'm excited about it. So I'm seeing
I missed that.
You missed what?
Your dates.
Okay, that was May 21st, June 18th, and August 4th. And as I understand it, maybe this can be more of a working discussion where we potentially throw out our desires and where we want to be on this. And if we fall short or one doesn't get 3 members, then that kind of shows where our priority is right there. But we do have other members that aren't available this evening as well. So this could be a working document. So I'm seeing lots of hands up. Member Lange.
I can do May the 7th. May the 21st, I will be there. So if there's like a block of time that I could agree to, that probably would work best. June the 12th, I can be available for a block of time. June 18th, I'm one of the collaborators, so I could commit to a block of time. And August the 4th, I can be available. And I'm willing to give it up if other people are going to be available too, but I thought I'd be.
Yeah.
And we can have more than 3 here. It's just, I just put the numbers up for now.
With the Juneteenth festival, you might want to hold on to that especially, because I know you're going to be busy. So thank you. And then member Bartholo.
Hi, I don't have my calendar, so I'm going to have to get back. I'll send Danielle. Can I send some dates to you?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And member Innocentia.
You can put me down for the 18th and August 4th, June 18th.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. And member Ron.
I am planning to be there this Saturday at the city hall or city manager town council or town meeting, and then also May 21st is my only other day I have available.
Okay. Great.
So I believe that might finish us out for this evening, for folks that have their calendar available. If there are members who are present now or of course we'll be sending it out. This is one of those items that I'd love for the email to go out pretty quickly after this meeting so that we get on this. And I apologize for not being available this Saturday. I will be out in the Bodega Bay announcing for the funny wooden boat races. So, for those folks that know about that. So I think that concludes our input on that. Do we have a public comment for that item?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Great, so that closes out item number 6.4. The next item is 6.5. I think there's 2 6.4s, but just so we know, this really is 6.5. Issues of concerns to city residents. Are there any issues of concerns? This is a standing agenda item. CAB members will report on issues of concern to community members within their CAB areas and the city as a whole. Community members may use public comment during this item to bring issues of concern to the CAB. So I see member Rom's hand.
Hi, I'll keep it quick. So there's a My Santa Rosa app that's currently out there. It is, I have lots of people that reach out to me and they say they've posted stuff on there. It gets on there. It says completed, but what completed means is that whoever receives that sends that complaint or that issue to a department and it goes nowhere. So we have members that are posting the same issue multiple times, and I've actually reached out to Gabe Osborne as well, but to find out what's the next step, where do they go from there when they're not getting any kind of response? And that goes to abandoned cars, limbs on roads, you name it. I think the transportation department's been about the most responsive when it comes to like potholes or something, but it's hard to empower the community to talk to the city when the city is not responding to the community. So I'd like to get some sort of direction on that.
Thank you, member Rom. And may I make a suggestion before moving on to the next member is having some conversation in the city to consider the language being used on the app. If completed is not the message that you want to send out when it's in the queue to be completed. Members of the community are not mistaken by the word. They're mistaken by the intention that is being communicated by the word. So we may need a word change on that app potentially. but that's my input anyway. So moving right along, Member Steffi.
Yes, I'll be quick also because I know it's past some of our bedtimes. Mine is just real quick, has nothing to do with anything we've talked about tonight, but I've been involved in a community issue right here in my neighborhood around the corner. 2 dogs got out in February and they killed 2 family cats in their backyards. And I've learned through lots of communication with elected officials and others that a dog can only be deemed vicious and taken into custody if they kill or injure a human. They can kill an animal, all the animals they want, and they still get to go back home. So I'm working on this issue from different angles. There'll be a hearing in June potentially, because actually I had some letters written to our mayor and he assigned this to the public safety subcommittee. So Victoria Fleming is in charge, and it'll be at their upcoming meeting in June to look at changing the city code pertaining to how you define these types of animals, just to improve the safety all over. This is just in my neighborhood, but the city attorney I'm working with, Adam Abel, is working on 7 cases right now that are similar. So these animal issues are happening everywhere. So I'll give you an update on when the hearing is, and if any of your community members might want to attend. It'll be, I believe, June 15th, but I'll update you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So yes, our May meeting will be before that, June 15th. And I want to commend Member Steffi for working on this. This is the type of engagement that goes unheard and unacknowledged sometimes. And I think that each and every one of us does many different forms of engagement with the community, with a wide array of members of the community. And I know that we all have those kinds of stories, but I want to thank Member Steffi for pursuing this and making that engagement with the city. So I appreciate you. Member Lange, I saw your hand was up. No? Okay. Also want for myself to bring up, obviously we all know that the sideshows have been a huge area of concern. If you haven't heard already, the bot dots, I want to say that correctly, have been dispersed out in intersections throughout the city and will be continuing to be dispersed and laid down in intersections. I'm making motions with my hands now, you can't see it. But they're dots that are affixed onto city streets. They're in intersections where a driver who's going through the intersection throughout the day and the evening will not be impeded by them in any way, shape, or form, unless you're trying to do donuts in the middle of the intersection during a sideshow. And then that makes that quite difficult. And they're super effective in decreasing that activity. So appreciate the city for following through with that and for seeing them out there, like on Petaluma Hill Road and over in the Roseland area and whatnot. I just want to make sure to acknowledge that. There's many tactics that are being used for sideshows. It's a very complex issue, and we appreciate all the work that's being done. So that now needs to go to public comment for item number 6.5, issues of concern.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. That closes that out. And future agenda items, number 7. This is a schedule that is tentative and subject to change, pending final publication and posting of the meeting agenda. You saw this in your agenda. I will quickly go through this. Continue working on strategic plan as needed. The public safety funding Measure O presentation, potentially in May of 2022, so next month. City's diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, potentially and tentatively for June this year. Also, our new city manager meet and greet that we know is this Saturday. If you are available, if you know, I can make it before I go out there or something like that, I am going to try to. Please help to spread the word. The information is on our social networks, and you can easily share that information to all of your friends and followers. Office of Community Engagement Strategic Plan, that will be coming up sometime in the future to be determined, and also a presentation by the Out There Santa Rosa Initiative thank you, Member Barnett, for requesting that. That'll be sometime in the future as well. Are there any additional items to add to that list? Seeing none, go to public comment.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. And that closes out item number 7. Without any objection, we can go to adjournment. No objection. Seeing none, I will take that as a first and a second from all of you. Thank you so much for your time and your energy. I really appreciate all of the engagement that happened this evening. And as always, stay safe and we'll see you next time.